back. This is something I've been thinking about. I was talking to my friend in Florida last night, and the question I've always wanted to, since I'm kind of frequently on here, all the social medias, um, what got what got you into cycling? If anybody follows me or anybody comes across my pages, what got you into the sport? You know, whether it was you just wanted the bike, or there's a long elaborate story, or you wanted to race, or you wanted whatever. What hooked you into this crazy sport? My little story, it's kind of two-parted. I'll make it really short. I don't want to drag this on. Me, there's the bike part and then there's the racing part. You know, the bike part came first. I just quit playing. I was eighth grade. I just quit playing baseball. I was a baseball player up till then, and I just didn't want to play anymore. And cross country started about the same time, but I was kind of doing that. But I don't know if I saw a catalog or something caught my eye with the bike. I'm like, God, I want one. That's a cool looking bike, you know. It'd be kind of fun to. That's really cool or whatever. And I don't remember exactly why I got the one. That story, I don't know. We have if you're from here, there used to be a shop down by the Big Chicken. If you're from here, you know what the Big Chicken is. Down on Roswell Road, if you go past, used to be a shop called J&J Schwinn. This was before I went to free. I don't think I'd been to Free Flight yet. And I wanted either a Tempo, might have been the Prelude, but it was like a pinkish. Back in that time period, you rode pink bikes and neon, and that was real hot in the late 80s and then the 90s, but they had a pink one. It was just really cool, and that's the one I wanted. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I was mowing yards. I mean, I didn't have a job yet. I think I was 16, and I was mowing yards. I think my mom, if I remember correctly, it was like, if I could save up part of it, she would help me get the other. And I wanted that pink one. I went out there, they didn't have my size. They had a black, and it might have been from 86, like the end of the year one. It was a black Prelude. It was cool too, and so I ended up getting that. And I think where the racing bug started, right around here or whatever, and I think I was headed up. There's a gas station up the street from here. We used to go up and get, you guys know what slushies are. We go up and get slushies, and they had a video game in there and played video games or whatever. And I was riding up, either on my way up there, and there was these two guys that, there's a church I passed in the big parking lot, and they were parked there. I guess they'd gotten done, and they were like getting ready to live. They were sitting out there talking or whatever, and they called me. They was like, "Hey man, come here. You know, hey, you're out riding." And I don't think I even had any gear yet. I might have. I don't. I was. It was early. I just basically had a bike, and I went down there, and they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go ride another little loop of this. You want to come?" And they knew I was just beginning. Didn't know what the hell I was doing, you know. And I was like, "Okay." And I think it was only like a couple of miles. It seemed farther, but it probably wasn't. So, but I kept up with them. He showed me how to kind of, here's what you do. You know, you just kind of sit on our wheel and we'll drag you. And I remember getting back, and then my house is like a mile from there. And I went home, and I remember going in there and telling my mom, I want a bike like those guys have. Those guys race. I want one of those. And so I went to Free Flight, and there was a brand in the 80s, 90s, they were gone. Brand called Centurion, but their bikes were really 80s. Like they had one. The one I got was magenta, but it was like a magenta, like an 80s and magenta and mustard yellow. Dave Scott, Ironman expert. We also had a Master Ironman too, but that one was more expensive. And again, you have to remember my age. I didn't have tons of money, and they had a thing called layaway, which nobody does anymore. So again, it came down to that previous fall, because the new bikes were coming out the fall of 87. The new 88s would have been starting to trickle in there. So he had an 87 or Ironman expert, and that crazy. They call it now, if you collect them, they call it Miami Vice. That's kind of what it reminds you of when you look at it. And he's like, this is perfect for your, your price range. I know you don't have a ton of money to spend, we have layaway and all that. So I ended up getting that bike, and that's where the racing thing, and seeing a poster of that fall of '87, Stephen Roach had won the World Championships. And Campanolo used to do posters through the '70s and the '80s, and of whoever rode Campanolo, and it was always a scene from, from a race, and it was like Eddie Merckx would be in one, or, whoever rode Le Mans, all the, there was one of, I don't know what caught my eye, but it was a horizontal shot, and he was winning the worlds, and it was just that he has extreme, like he was super excited, but all the guys around him were just blown out. But it was just that, like, that's what I want to do right there. That's awesome, whatever. And then the flip to the following year, the '88 Tour of Italy, the Giro, still the only American to win it was Andy Hampsten, but there was a stage where they went up to Gavia. It was blizzard, like the worst possible conditions you can ride in, and they had the stage. And there's a poster that he has Andy has a cycling touring thing he does over in Italy. You can go over and ride with him, and he shows you, but it's Shingali. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but they did a 10th anniversary. It would have been 1998. They did a 10th anniversary poster. There's a shot of, there's only really a couple of photos of him coming up to Gavia. It's just absolutely blizzard. But it's just that image, like, I want to do that. That is so badass. And I got the poster. I remember back then I got it framed. It actually sits on my, that's the first thing I see. When I get up to go whatever, I see that poster and I see that image, and I'm like, that's why I ride. That's why I race, with that. And I got to tell Andy that years later after that. I got to actually tell him in person. But that's what got me started. It was the two things. I got a bike, then you get the bug, and you're like, some people don't race. They just like riding around and just for fitness, or then you got people like me. It's like, I want to compete against, because I'm still competitive, but that same with running. I was the same way, I went into it just like that, but that's what got me completely hooked, and spend lots of money and meeting tons of cool people along the way. I was telling you on one of my other videos, this is my 39th year. It's insane, but but I'm one of those, I'm hooked for life. It's just such a great sport, and it's just so much fun. And though I don't race anymore, I still have that in me. But that's the two things that got me into cycling, was the bike, and then the racing kind of came in, and then I stayed doing it, because I just enjoy riding so much. But I want to hear what you guys, stitching it, you can put it into my thing, or you can post it, tag me in it. I would love to hear. I just want to hear what I love, if it's a little tiny little story, or if it's just elaborate. I want to hear about it. I'd love to hear about it. There's all kinds of crazy stories about this sport, and I would love to hear about it, but let me know. And I'm going to say this, Michael Van Ness, you're up.